Welcome to JMW's Inside Man YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and keep the conversation going in the comments section as well. So we've had the GDPR, which post-Brexit became the UK GDPR. There's the Data Protection Act. For people like you and I, David, who take an interest in data protection law, we'll be pleased that there's a new data protection bill. But what does this bill really mean?
Right, well, the government had always been clear that they wanted to simplify data structures and get the benefit of Brexit. This bill is intended to do that. I mean, it's a bit of a difficult sort of position, because the reality, of course, is that we're quite bound to the EU still. We have an adequacy arrangement with the EU, which allows us to process EU nationals' data here in the UK. If you overdo the separation thing from the EU, then the EU is entitled to take away its adequacy arrangement. And of course, it's a bit more complex than that, because inevitably these things become sort of political pawns as well. And the more we end up bumping heads with the EU over other stuff like Northern Ireland or fishing rights or whatever, the more likely they are to review these adequacy arrangements. And then you've got the separate point, of course, that it's not just up to the EU, actually. You've got EU nationals, and the most famous, of course, is Max Schrems, who's a big advocate and pressure provider on these things, and has already knocked down the EU-US Privacy Shield twice, and he could potentially turn around and take a challenge in the European Court of Justice. Of course, it doesn't apply to the UK, but it still would apply to an adequacy arrangement granted to the UK by the EU. So if he thinks that we've gone too far, he might try and challenge the ability of the EU to continue to offer adequacy arrangements to the UK as well. So although the government likes to make big song about better positions for the UK, it's quite limited in what it can do. And then you've got the other problem, of course, that any business that is dealing with EU nationals' data still has to comply with the EU flavour of the GDPR. So however much we soften the UK GDPR, for a lot of companies who are trading into the EU and dealing with EU residents' data, it won't make any difference, because they've still got to comply with the EU version of the GDPR. So it's not really worth having two separate regimes in place. Yeah, so it's interesting, but potentially of academic interest to quite a lot of people.
And just putting the political points aside for a minute, I mean, does the fact that there is going to be potentially more data protection legislation just show how important data is to our day-to-day lives, and how it will be even more important perhaps in the future?
Well, yeah, data really is important, and more people are starting to ask hard questions of companies about how their data is being used. Certainly one of the criticisms of the new data bill is that people are flagrantly breaching the GDPR across the board, especially in smaller companies. And so does it really matter, especially as enforcement is still quite lax? But of course, some of these changes will benefit small companies by removing some of the hoops that they're supposed to be jumping through now, but frequently aren't. So we'll remove them from threat. But also, as these things become more ingrained and people spend more time looking at it, obviously taking away some of the hoops potentially, makes life easier a lot across the board. And in fact, some of the ideas the government said are quite good, and one might hope that the EU might take some of them back on board itself and reincorporate them back into the wider GDPR. We shouldn't forget that the UK actually was one of the prime writers of the GDPR to begin with. It wasn't something written by people in Brussels and foisted on us as though that's the way it's often presented. But actually, the UK had a huge amount of input in writing it in the first place.
And you mentioned those small businesses. I mean, we act for a variety of different size businesses, but generally for SMEs, how can we help with data protection legislation advice?
Well, we provide a full suite of advice. We can provide EU representatives. So we have companies based in the EU that we can utilize to provide representatives for people who are trading into the EU. We can advise people both on their posture as regards the EU and as regards the UK. And we have strong connections with other jurisdictions as well to deal with other countries such as the USA or Saudi Arabia being one of the new ones, China. and these other places that are all introducing their own flavors of data protection legislation as well.
David, thank you very much for your insight. And if you'd like to speak to David for more information, you can email insideman@jmw.co.uk or call 0161 82 81 999. Please also subscribe to the JMW Inside Man YouTube channel from JMW Solicitors for all the latest legal news, insights and tips. I'm Dominic Walker, JMW's Inside Man.